So this is something that did get under my skin. I'll be vulnerable there for a second, and therefore I'm going to make this video about it, okay? So this is Elizabeth Hartman, and I want to be very clear. She is an outstanding veteran advocate. Outstanding, awesome, amazing all around, okay? I want that to be known. She also has a hate for claim companies, as many service officers do. She's not a service officer. I believe she's a prior American Legion, something to do with that. Okay. You can look her up if you want. Now, I made a post about the American Legion helping a friend of mine, and I really wanted to give props where props were due. So I did. And here it is. Okay. The background of that story is a friend of mine really needed time-sensitive critical help. Lots of stress. They have 2 children that depend on their VA disability compensation. And so I made this post, and boom, the American Legion helped. And all's good. All's gravy. Except Miss Hartman felt the need to make this comment. And this is what really brings the point of why I'm making this right now. And this is something that I would argue is a cancer in the veteran community, specifically on LinkedIn. Okay. She says, you left out the best part, Philip, or Philippe, I apologize if I said that wrong, and the American Legion don't charge for support like Yo Girl, Kate Monroe at VetCom US, right? And to give you some background, I partner with VetCom. I support VetCom. VetCom is amazing. They're a claim companies. They are a claim company. They have a flat rate, $11.97. No future benefits, okay? It really takes fraud out of the question. Bada bing, bada boom. That's it. I have many videos on that. But the reason I wanted to make this is because VSOs versus claim companies is a never-ending social media battle, okay? It's kind of like abortion. You're never going to win an abortion argument because you have those that are pro-choice and you have those who aren't. And that's just the way it is, okay? And the only thing that wins battles like that is legislation. Okay. And so it doesn't matter what people say on social media about claim companies, whether they support them or not. It also doesn't matter what people say about VSOs, whether they support them or not, until legislation is passed. Our opinions mean nothing, right? I would also argue that the infighting in the stance of my way is the best way does not create an advantage for veterans by any means, and most likely probably deters veterans away from receiving their benefits because there's this bad spotlight on veteran benefits as a whole, okay? And so you'll see claim companies, those companies that say my way is the best way, and VSOs that say my way is the best way, they're both wrong, okay? Veterans have options. If you want to go a VSO route, go a VSO route. That whole video, at the end, I show people how to find a VSO through the OGC accreditation search, okay? If you try to use a VSO, and this is what we're going to get to here in a second, and they were completely dog water worthless, because if you think for a moment that every service officer is outstanding, you're living in la land, okay? Hence, these companies, then veterans have an option to go to a claim company. It's free choice. It's veteran choice, right? Unless, of course, you're arguing a tax-paying American doesn't have the choice at who represents them in front of the VA, and then that's where legislation matters because our opinions don't matter, right? Now, I commented back, but I'm going to explain this a bit further. There are really, really amazing top-tier veteran service organizations, okay? There are really poopy butt, and I'm going to say that jokingly, really, really bad VSOs out there, okay? There are really amazing service officers out there, and there are those dog water, absolutely worthless, don't answer phone calls, don't answer emails, service officers. Those exist, and I would probably argue there's more of these than there are of those, and public opinion tells us that much, okay? Now, how do I know this? From personal experience. There was a DAV rep on Quantico in 2019. I'm not going to say his name, but you can probably do some research. He was absolutely worthless, right? This VSO rep, I went to him to submit my claims. I had just got out of the Marine Corps, and he could not turn on his computer. I had to turn on his computer for him. Now, he was in his 80s. I'll give him that. But that's the VSO rep I used. And ended up, he couldn't access the system. Go figure, right? And so I ended up going to another VSO who was also subpar, and that was prior to me knowing the ins and outs of this VA disability claims, how to submit the claim, the compensation, the process, CMP exams, all those things. I've never heard of any of those. I talked to 2 VSOs, never heard of any of those aspects from a claim at all, right? And so my point is, maybe, just maybe, if VSOs put actual effort into standardizing training for service officers, right, and making service officers accessible via remotely, maybe, just maybe, VSOs would be better suited to help those veterans. Okay. Now that whole situation revolved around my friend, and my friend lives in Alabama, and they needed very serious help, right? And prior to them reaching out to me, they went to their local American Legion rep, and they weren't there multiple times. They called them, they emailed them, nothing. It's complete silence. Okay. And now, since they're my very close personal friend of mine, I just happen to have a platform. I make a post. I have the privilege, right, to make a post and get them help like that. If I was not their friend, they are in the dirt just like everyone else in that entire community. Okay. That's just one example. There are tons of veterans that have expressed very valid concern going against VSOs. And you know what changes? Nothing changes. Okay. So just a thought here. Maybe if VSOs put effort, training, and money into service officers, maybe it would make a dent in claim companies. But we know that's not going to happen, because when you look at corruption in nonprofit organizations, that exists. It very much does. Okay. So if VSOs don't want claim companies to operate, that's all fine and dandy, but they need to get legislation passed. All right. And we've seen that in a few states, not many, but in a few. And we see the GUARD and the PLUS Act right now. And where do we see that on the floor? It's essentially might as well not even exist, right? Because no one talks about it, and these are just dead. They're dead in the water, right? So maybe VSO should focus on VSO things and providing the best possible product they can to veterans. And by doing so, the market will correct itself instead of trying to fight fire with fire. Because again, opinions don't matter. Legislation needs to be passed. And so you know why claim companies are successful? You can like it or not, okay? Claim companies are successful because they get results. Veterans go to them, they get rated. That's it. That's it. And it's not just, well, what do you want to claim? They're looking at increases. They're looking at secondaries. They're helping with denials. They're looking at new claims. They're looking at presumptives. They're looking at toxic exposure. They're fully looking at the claim instead of a VSO or walking into a VSO office and saying, hey, what do you want to claim? Well, I don't know. Oh, okay. We'll just claim this, this, and this. All right, bye. Right. And that assumes you get that in-person meeting. And so, one, my opinion, does not matter. Okay. But before VSOs kind of fight fire with fire, they might want to make sure that their own house is clean first. Right. There is corruption at the highest level of nonprofit organizations. That's a fact. Okay. You look at where money's being funneled. It's not to service officers. It's not to training. It's not to provide the best product. And we're in the VA claim space right now. There's other veteran issues going on. This is disability. There's a reason why claim companies are successful. And VSOs on LinkedIn, or people who would identify themselves with VSOs on LinkedIn, who are moaning, griping, and complaining, literally does nothing. So, sorry, dude.